Good evening, this is Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. In the last 1 month alone, in the state of Assam, at least 4 madrasas have been pulled down. One of them has been pulled down by the locals there, allegedly because there were terror activities that were happening inside that madrasa. In Uttar Pradesh, the government has started the process of recognition of madrasas, particularly when it comes to their funding, where the money is coming from, and what activities they are indulged in. Now, the opposition, led by politicians like Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi, are questioning the very intent of such a move. They are saying that this is anti-constitutional. Leaders like Mayawati are saying this is simply part of a witch hunt, part of a campaign. The bottom line is this: if all institutions in this country, whether it's schools or companies or businesses, are all regulated by the government in one form or the other, then why should madrasas be not? But first, the story of the day so far.
This has been demolished by the district authorities. However, the first reason that has been sorted is that this has been made in a very unauthorized way. Other narrative that is coming is the arrest of Hafizur Rahman.
आप मदरसों को बदनाम भाजपा इसलिए करती है क्योंकि भाजपा जानती है कि आजादी की लड़ाई में कोई आरएसएस वाला नहीं करता।
जिहादी वाला पकड़ा है असम में, तो वन कैन नॉट टेक इट इजीली। तो हम तो हेमंत जी कर रहे हैं, वो ठीक कर रहे हैं।
All right, joining us on the talking point this evening is Abbas Haider. He's a spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. Mohammad Farhan is spokesperson of the MIM. Rahul Ishwar, author and activist, also joining us this evening. And Arti Agarwal is a lawyer, author and researcher. And Vikram Singh, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh. Let me start with the spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Abbas Haider. The question is simply this, sir. Every time there is a move to regulate madrasas, to ask for their source of funding, and more importantly, what is being taught in these madrasas? Is it scientific subjects? Is maths, history, geography, etc. being taught? There is an uproar that is created by opposition parties like yourself, the Samajwadi Party. If all institutions in this country are regulated through some form of government regulation, why should madrasas not be?
See, there are 2-3 different things. Because if you talk about UP Madrasa survey, I would like to come on that. So, first of all, UP Madrasa survey, so there is no such point in the 12-point questionnaire that has been sent to the district administration which will ask about their funding or something like that. Now, the thing is, UP government has already told in an order in May this year that they are not going to fund any new madrasa in Uttar Pradesh. Now, UP, one of the ministers in Uttar Pradesh is saying that they are going to fund the madrasa. So there is confusion among the public that what is the purpose of this survey, this particular survey. Okay, if you are doing a survey, it's all right. But the problem is, there have been survey in all the primary school, private, aided and unaided primary school across Uttar Pradesh that is done by the district inspector of school. And we have seen the immense level of corruption in such surveys, how they do it. Everybody knows, nobody is unaware of that. Now, if you talk about the Assam issue, that's a different issue. So, nobody has said that, if somebody is accused, if a madrasa teacher is accused in a crime, he is involved in an illegal activity, it is the responsibility of the government to present concrete evidence against that person, get him convicted. Nobody is saying that you should not do that. But the thing is, when we try to create a vicious atmosphere.
There is one fundamental problem, one fundamental distinction that the Assam government is making, which you are not making, which is they are saying it's not just about 1 or 2 individuals using the property, it is that the entire property itself was being used for terror activities. They're also saying that these madrasas that have been demolished in Assam, they had come up in violation of building bylaws. Why would you be seen as backing something that is violating building bylaws?
See, I'll tell you. we should not see something with a particular lens. If there is an illegal activity going on, it is the responsibility of the government to look into it and give them their due punishment, whatever it is, according to the rule of law. But what we have seen in Golpara in Assam, that what has happened, local residents have come forward, they have demolished the madrasa, they have taken the law in their hand. So where are we moving toward? I mean, Bharatiya Janata Party is trying to create a vicious atmosphere, and people are taking law in their hand. So are we heading towards a banana republic? Is there a rule of law in the country? I'm saying that anything illegal is
Rahul
happening
Ishwar,
anywhere.
respond to that. It is one thing. Yeah, let Rahul Ishwar respond to that. It is one thing to say, okay, there is a premises that's being used for suspicious activities, there's a premises that's being used for terror activities. Fair enough. That is a suspicion by the agencies, by the police. But how can you have, Rahul Ishwar, first it was the state, now common citizens are taking the law into their own hands and demolishing properties on the basis of suspicion. It's not like a court has come to a conclusion that this premises was used for nefarious activities. That is a dangerous trend. That is going down a rabbit hole, Rahul Ishwar. Rahul, if I can ask you, the point that people like Abbas Haider are making is, yes, if you feel that there is a premises that's being used for suspicious activities, nefarious activities, by all means go ahead and take action against that premises. But by demolishing it without a court order, and in this case, the last instance that we're talking about, the most recent instance we're talking about in Assam, where people have taken the law into their own hands and have gone ahead and demolished a building. What's to say tomorrow people won't do the same thing for personal enmity? Rahul Ishwar, that question is to you. Okay, let's try and see if we can go to another guest. Let's go to Aarti Agarwal on that question. Aarti, if you can take that question.
Well, thank you, Zaka. I think that people taking the law into their own hands is never a good precedent for anybody. So be it, this side or that side, people taking the law into their hands is not a good thing. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not approving of that. But the bigger question here is, what is the law exactly doing? I mean, why are people taking the law into their own hands in the first place? So coming to the bigger question of, the UP government investigating madrasas and trying to get a survey of madrasas, there are several questions to be asked here, which at least I think are very big questions which should concern everybody. Firstly, if there is nothing wrong, there is nothing illegal, there is nothing immoral happening in the madrasas, nobody should have a problem with a survey of it. So, Owaisi's question of vicious atmosphere, all that blah, blah, doesn't really hold. I mean, if everything is legitimate there, then why is there a problem? It's a survey. It's a government-supported building, first of all. Secondly, we've seen that many underage kids have been involved in rioting in Kanpur and in other places before. And, we don't need to check the links if they are if there is some sort of a link between the madrasas where these kids are going and their involvement in these kind of illegal activities, because recently there were kids in the Kanpur riots who were involved, and even their parents did not know that they were involved in those riots. So those kind of things, especially when we're talking about underage kids, it's a very sensitive issue which it should concern everybody, not just Hindus or Muslims or whatever. The third thing is, we've also seen links to PFI with some madrasas in the past, and links to some terror activities. And once again, if there is no links to terror activities, everything is fine, nothing is a problem. But I don't see a problem with investigation for links with terror activities or organizations like PFI which fund such activities like the kind of riots we've had. So that does need to be investigated.
Let me ask Rahul Ishwar. I think his line has been connected finally with us. Rahul Ishwar, this is a question that's being asked by Muslim organizations like the Jamaat-e-Ulema-e-Hind, who have called this a malicious attempt. That's the word they've used. A malicious attempt to disparage the education system. Mr. Asduddin Owaisi says that this is a mini NRC. How are you going to respond to the concerns that there are in the Muslim community that this survey that the UP government is undertaking is simply an exercise at pushing Muslims down and young Muslim kids who are studying in madrasas down as second-class citizens? How are you going to respond to that?
Saka, two quick points. One of the greatest education ministers we had, one of the greatest confidants and friends of Mahatma Gandhi, was a Holy Quran scholar who was learned in madrasa, who also taught Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. One of the greatest presidents we had is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. His father was an imam in a mosque. So that answers the question. We have great number of figures who have studied in madrasa, who have come to the forefront and really helped India progress. Second point, but let me quote Sufi Mahapanjayat, who is a very respected Muslim organization. Sufi Mahapanjayat some years ago pointed out that huge Wahhabi-funded money from Saudi Arabia and Middle East are being pumped into India. Please remember, this is not an allegation by Hindus or any other non-religious people or seculars or atheists. This is by Sufi Mahapanjayat, who is a very respected Islamic organization of a spiritual fervor. They pointed out that huge amount of money are being funded because of the hardline Wahhabi Islam, which even Saudi Arabia and the other nations are trying to resist. So we need to keep vigil. According to government statistics, UP had around 15,163 madrasas which are recognized. There are 99% of madrasas might be right, will be imparting spiritual education. But if there are any suspicions or apprehensions regarding 1% of madrasas, government should look into it. May it be madrasa or any other religious institution, it should be look into it. Because any religion should be taught according to the national law, legal framework, social harmony. So many things are involved. And one more point, I don't think anybody in their right mind will say that people can take the law into their hand and demolish any building that forever, because we understand and respect the concerns of our Muslim brothers. That's the reason why even the largest powerful Hindu organization, RSS Supremo, Sarsang Chalak Mohan Bhagavatji, went on record to say that let us not search for shivaling under every mosque. That is absolutely not necessary. So there need to be a moderation from both sides, and our Muslim brothers need to understand there is an international angle. And just one more line. Coming from Kerala, you might know, nearly 100 people joined ISIS from Kerala. So there is an issue of radicalization we need to tackle. I am the greatest voucher of Hindu-Muslim unity. At the same point of time, hardline Islamism or Wahhabism or whichever name you want to call, the radical Wahhabi Islamist thought is an issue. Government needs to intervene. Security agencies need to intervene.
I want to ask, I want to ask Mohammad Farhan of the MIM. We had the UP Minority Affairs Minister Danish Ansari speaking to CNN News 18 earlier today, saying that this survey that's going to be undertaken is going to be in cohort with the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, the NCPCR. After all, they're surveying madrasas where young children are taught. What is wrong if the government of UP is using a national child protection rights body to survey what are the basic facilities, amenities being given to young kids who are studying in these madrasas? Why should you take an objection to it? Mohammad Farhan. Okay, I don't think you can hear me. Let me go to Abbas Haider. Why don't you take that question? All right, Abbas Haider, please take that question.
There are contradictions in the statement of BJP leaders. I would like to quote 4 or 5 different quote of BJP leaders. Rakesh Sachan is the cabinet minister of Uttar Pradesh. He was telling the media that we are going to survey these madrasas because we are funding them. Another minister, which you have just told his name, Mr. Ansari, he told that we are going to do something for the madrasa, so we are going to survey that. There is an NCPCR report, government, one of the leaders, most of the spokesperson saying that we are going to survey madrasa according to the NCPCR report. Now there is a contradiction. First of all, government is not giving any kind of grants to these madrasa because they are unrecognized. Most of these madrasa, they don't even have a building or a room maybe. And so forget about facilities. It's like if you gather 10 or 15 children and you teach them about journalism, it's like that. It's like tuition or coaching, whatever you call it. So, I mean, but the problem is the Bharatiya Janata Party, they just want to divert public attention from pressing issues because the employment rate in the country has gone down from 20.9% to 10.4%. That is the problem they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about that the foreign debts of the country has got 8.2% high. I mean, they have got 8.2% increase in just 1 year. It's got 62,000 crore dollar. People like Munshi Premchand and Dr.
Anyway,
Rajiv Prasad
that's
got
not
educated in
Abbas.
madrasa.
Abbas, that's
And
not
I'll tell you
the
one more thing.
the subject of today's debate.
Even today-
Abbas. No, Abbas. Let's not digress. Let's not digress. That's not the subject of today's debate. Let me ask Mohammad Farhan. Mohammad Farhan, ये बताइए कि आज का जो बोंगाई गांव में हुआ था, जो मदरसा को डिमोलिशन हुआ था, ये लोकल्स ने वहां किया था, लेकिन ये एक मैजिस्ट्रेट के ऑर्डर के बाद हो रहा है। अगस्त 30 तारीख को एक मैजिस्ट्रेट ने ये ऑर्डर दिया था कि ये जो मदरसा है उसके लिए नेसेसरी डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं है, काफ़ी सारे मल्टीपर्पज़ एक्टिविटीज़ चल रहे हैं उनके प्रेमिसेस के अंदर। ऑर्डर में ये भी कहा अदालत ने कि जो भी मदरसा वहाँ था वो PWD के रेगुलेशन के अनुसार नहीं बनाया था। तो अगर कोर्ट ने ये फैसला दी है तो फिर उसमें क्या आपत्ति होगी आपकी कि लोग आए या पुलिस आए या प्रशासन आए और उसको तोड़ें, लेकिन कोर्ट के ऑर्डर की वजह से ही किया ना उन्होंने।
जी, मुझे देखिए, हेलो, मेरी आवाज आप तक आ रही सर? मेरी आवाज आप तक आ रही?
बोलिए।
मैं ये कह रहा हूं सर कि
अगर आवाज आ रही है आपकी,
अगर क्या नाम वो चीजें अनलीगल थी और अगर कोर्ट अनलीगल मानता है कि वो बिल्डिंग अनलीगल थी और उसके बाद क्या नाम है उस अनलीगल बिल्डिंग के तहत तोड़ा गया, उसका चाहे नक्शा नहीं पास था या उसके डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं थे, इस वजह से तोड़ा गया, तो हमें कोई आपत्ति नहीं। अब मैं दूसरी पॉइंट उठाना चाहता हूं। विश्व हिंदू परिषद के हिंदुस्तान के अंदर जितने भी कार्यालय हैं किसी के नक्शे नहीं पास हैं, सारे विदाउट क्या नाम है नक्शे के हैं। आप क्या ये बताइए कि उनके सारे कार्यालय तोड़ दिए जाएंगे? भारतीय जनता पार्टी के ऐसे बहुत से कार्यालय हैं जहां पर अवैध कब्जा करके बिल्डिंग बना रखा है, क्या वो भारतीय जनता पार्टी अपने सारे कार्यालयों को ध्वस्तीकरण के आदेश दे देगी? अपने गवर्नमेंट में नहीं दे पाएगी। कुल मिला के सर ये क्या नाम है एक टारगेट बनाया गया कि इस तरीके से मदरसा को तोड़ा गया कि उसके बिल्डिंग के ये पेपर नहीं है, वो पेपर नहीं, ये पेपर नहीं है। बहुत सी सरकारी बिल्डिंग्स हैं, सरकारी बिल्डिंग है जिनके पेपर्स नहीं है हिंदुस्तान के अंदर और उनके नक्शे पास नहीं है, गवर्नमेंट के मानक पर नहीं है, मगर फिर भी बिल्डिंग्स चल रही है ना सर। अगर क्या नाम है,
लेकिन फरहान साहब ये बताइए, ये जो अंसारुल बांग्ला टीम है उनके मॉड्यूल्स जो हैं, ये जो 4 मदरसे हैं उनके अंदर से पकड़े गए हैं, तो ये कहना कि मतलब बीजेपी या आरएसएस या बाकी संस्थाओं के ऑफिसेस को आप तोड़ नहीं रहे हैं क्योंकि वो अवैध निर्माण है या बिल्डिंग बायलॉज के उल्लंघन कर रहे हैं, लेकिन उनका कोई टेरर ग्रुप से कोई ताल्लुकात नहीं है ना। ये अंसारुल बांग्ला टीम ABT जो है उनके डायरेक्ट लिंक्स पाए गए हैं इन मदरसों में, इसीलिए वो तोड़े गए हैं।
लीजिए सर, अगर आतंकवादी गतिविधियों में संलिप्ति थी और वो लोग मदरसे में रहे तो उन लोगों के खिलाफ कार्रवाई करनी चाहिए जिन लोगों ने मदरसों में उनको ठहराने का काम किया, या तो क्या नाम है उन लोगों को पकड़िए जिन लोगों ने उनसे ताल्लुक रखा। मदरसे से उससे क्या लेना देना? मदरसे से तो उसका कोई लेना देना नहीं। मदरसा तो एक संस्था है, संस्था में जो उनको रखा, जो लोग क्या नाम है उनको ले आए या उनसे जिनका संबंध था, उनको कानून के दायरे में आकर जो उनको होती है पनिशमेंट दी जानी चाहिए, मगर मदरसे को क्यों?
Let me ask Vikram Singh, it was pretty apparent way back 10 years ago when the Sachar Committee report came out that socially and educationally Muslim children were the most backward, and the reason for that was because they were not being sent to school. Now, there are many in the community who argue that madrasas fill a very important gap in the Muslim community because for whatever reason, social reasons, cultural reasons, they're not sent to school. Maybe even for economic reasons, they're not sent to school. They're instead sent to madrasas. The point, though, Vikram Singh, is that what we need to impart to young Muslim kids is science, physics, and chemistry, and geography, and history, and not necessarily religious education. Religious education, if at all, should be taught at home, and for those who are interested, should be taught in a seminary. But imparting education on a mass basis should be a scientific endeavor which only schools can impart.
You're absolutely right, Zaka. Sachar Commission highlighted the socio-economic conditions of the Muslim minority, and yes, there were actionable points that were taken, and the government has taken action on that. But yes, seminal and religious teachings are best done at home. At a mass scale and mass teaching of religious, in fact, this was taken up not only in India but the world over. It is a cause of concern because often it has been alleged that there is a certain fountainhead of jihad, and in my own career and in my own experience I have seen that very often that those accused of terror, they go back to some madrasas or the other where they were holed up, they were concealed, or whether they were trained, indoctrinated or radicalized. Therefore, every institution and every individual in the country is accountable to the rule of law. You very rightly mentioned that madrasas are affordable. Madrasas give affordable education. And yes, people who do not have the deep pockets to put their children into convent school and expensive schools, they have only one option. But the happy point is that this year, the NEET examination, there are any number of students from the madrasas who have come in the top 100 of the NEET examination. That is answering your question that yes, apart from religious teaching, you have to have computers, English, learning of sciences, and that is what the taste of the pudding lies in its eating, that if they have done so well in NEET, they could do well in civil services also. The focus has to be different, the priority has to be different, and once and for all, they should dissociate themselves from Rohingyas and illegal Bangladeshi migrants and also people with a dubious background.
Rahul Ishwar, the question that's being asked of the various governments, whether it's in Assam, whether it's in Uttar Pradesh, is why rake up this issue now? After all, we are seeing very contentious, title disputes, for example, or ownership disputes, whether it is Gyanvapi case, whether it is Mathura case. Every day there seems to be some kind of Hindu-Muslim issue that is plaguing this nation. Is this being deliberately done by the likes of BJP and other right-wing organizations because it suits them electorally? Or is this something that those are historical grievances that are now coming to the fore today, in this day and age?
Three quick points, Saka. One, Yogi government allocated rupees 479 crore for madrasas 2 years back. That was the largest of the biggest state budget till date, 479 crores for madrasas. Second, yes, spiritual education needs to be on one hand. Modern scientific education needs to be on the other hand. I believe our Prime Minister put it very rightly, saying that Holy Quran should be on one hand and laptop or computer should be on the other hand. Yes, there are some historical tensions. Nobody can deny that. So we need to put forward an equation of Hindu plus Muslim. Hindu-Muslim issue jab aata hai, hum Hindu plus Muslim equation. This is what we have to put forward. We should not go for a blind kind of categorically religion-denying secularism. We need to have a positive approach, a Gandhian approach or a Vivekananda's approach, whatever we want to call it, or a Mahatma Gandhi and Maulana approach of putting forward Hindu plus Muslim. And three, yes, there are hardline organizations in our community too. Nobody can deny that. There are people like Yedi Narasimhan, there are crazy crackpots like Satvi Prachis on every side. So that's the reason why all the responsible organizations, Sarsang Chalak has categorically said, see, we cannot take revenge on history. Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev has said, we cannot take revenge on history. At the same point of time, there are some sensitive spots like Kashi and Mathura, which we need to sit down as mature adults and deal with it and reach some kind of a consensus. Even the earlier archaeological survey person, K.K. Mohammed, who himself is from a Muslim community, has said there needs to be some kind of conciliation and communication regarding some sensitive places, not that every other place is going to be reclaimed per se. That's the reason why even RSS Sarsang Chalak is on record saying that we cannot dig beyond every religious structure to find another structure. Yes, there are hardline voices in every side that needs to be ignored, but moderate voices needs to be encouraged. And some issues we need to talk. We cannot brush it under the carpet forever. We need to talk, find consensus, bring forth harmony.
I'll conclude by saying that yes, there are historical questions. Whether it makes sense to bring them up now or whether those should be buried in the past, that's a matter of debate. But one thing is absolutely clear, that any institution in this country, whether it is schools, businesses, companies, if they all have to be registered with government and there is some form of regulation for them, then why not madrasas? I think that's a fair question to ask. We'll leave it at that. I want to thank all my guests, Abbas Haider, Mohammad Farhan, of course, Rahul Ishwar, Aarti Agarwal and Vikram Singh. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, there is disengagement happening at PP15 in Gogra Hot Springs after the 16th round of talks between India and China. But the opposition is asking the question, what about Depsang? What about Temchok? And is all of this happening in the run-up to a possible meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping next week in Uzbekistan? That's right on the other side.